friends. Ever since I got this paper, now they tryna make amends. They just do not get the picture, had to change up with a lens. I don't like the small talk, everything I do is big. Lately they been taking shots, dog, I got a strong chin. They asking for my story, tell them what shit.
What's up everybody, Jimmy here with another video, and in today's video I'm just gonna share with you my process of shooting with SLOG 3 and why I shoot in SLOG 3 and how I actually color grade my SLOG 3 footages. So let me start with the why. Why do I shoot in SLOG 3? So I'm a sucker for color grade, so shooting in SLOG 3 just gives me a base to play around with the colors as much as I want to play with. Shooting in SLOG 3 just gives you a lot of dynamic range, and it's almost like painting on a white sheet of paper, because with a white sheet of paper you can add as many other colors as you want to add. So it's the same thing with shooting in SLOG 3. It just gives you a lot of range to work with, given that the colors are not as saturated, so you can saturate the colors as you want to. So that's just basically why I shoot in SLOG 3, because it gives me a lot of color depth and it gives me a lot of dynamic range to work with, and it's like an empty plate for you to do whatever you want to do with. So that's why I shoot in SLOG 3. So what are my camera settings for shooting in SLOG 3? So usually when I want to shoot in SLOG 3, because this footage I shot with the Sony a7S III SLOG 3, and I used the Sigma 35mm 1.4 to take this shot right here. And my settings were my frames per second, I shot in 24 frames per second, and my shutter speed was at 1/50, and my ISO was set at 800, and my white balance, I think I set my white balance to auto actually. My aperture was set to 1.4, but then when you do all of that, the image is going to be overexposed. So I also use an ND filter. I think it's a KNF concept ND filter. It's a variable ND filter. So those are my settings for this shot right here. So I'm just going to show you how I color grade my SLOG 3 footages. So one thing I always put into consideration is the color why I'm setting up to shoot. So I already have an idea of the color that I want to get in post, so I start working on getting the color while I'm still shooting. So it just makes my color grading process a lot easier, and I don't have to spend a lot of time color grading because I already know what I want, and I start working on getting the look while I'm still shooting. So that's a very important part, so you should keep that in mind. Here is the shot right here, and like always, I'm actually going to upload this footage so you can download and just follow along with the tutorial. So the first thing I do when I want to color grade is I'm gonna come here to my project settings, and I'm going to show you my color management settings. So I use my timeline color space is going to be DaVinci Intermediate, and my output is going to be Rec 709 scene, and that's basically it. I don't change anything else. Here I'm just going to click on Alt S to create multiple notes, and we're going to be working with 6 notes right here, and I'm just going to put this right here, just adjust it. So now the first thing I do when I shoot in SLOG is to convert the SLOG to Rec 709, or to just add some more contrast, because the reason why it looks white is because it doesn't have any contrast, so you have to actually dial in the contrast yourself. So to do that, is very simple way is to use a conversion effect. So in DaVinci Resolve, they use the color space transform effects to convert it, or to add some more saturation and some contrast. So since we shot in SLOG 3, Sony SLOG 3, the input color space is going to be Sony S Gamma 3 Cine, and the input gamma is going to be SLOG 3. And then we're going to be using the DaVinci White Gamut. That's why my settings right here was set to DaVinci White Gamut, DaVinci Intermediate, because here we're going to be using our output color space is going to be DaVinci White Gamut. and then our output gamma is going to be DaVinci Intermediate. And so we've transformed it from SLOG3 to DaVinci White Gamut. And I'm gonna come to my fifth node right here, and then I'll do the same effect. And then here, since our output color space in this node was DaVinci White Gamut, it's going to then be our input space. Now it's like a pipe. So this first node right here is like a pipe, the other like the pipe, and then this one is the other pipe. So you're connecting them together. So here our input color space is going to be DaVinci White Gamut, and our input gamma here is going to be DaVinci Intermediate. Now I'm going to set our output color space here to Rec 709, and then my output gamma is going to be Xenon Film Log. So the reason why I'm using Xenon Film Log in this case is because I'm going to be using one of the LUTs from DaVinci Resolve, and it works better when you use Xenon Film Log. So I'm going to click here, and let's get out of the effects here. And then I'm just going to come to my LUTs right here, and then to my film looks. So I'm going to be using the Kodak 2383 D55, and I'm just going to drag and put it over here. Let's name the clips. So this was our input, this was our output, and this is our LUT. So we're done with the conversion. So from here we start doing what we call problem solving. So color grading and color correction is all about problem solving. You solve the problems you have until you get to the look that you want to get. So looking at this shot, I see that it's a little bit overexposed. So to fix my exposure, I'm just going to come to my second node. Let's just name this exposure. So I'm to fix my exposure, what I usually do is I'm going to come to my HDR grade, and then on my global, I'm just going to play around with the exposure a little bit until I get to where I want to. So I feel like this is a sweet spot right here. So this is before, after for the exposure node. But then this is where we came from: before, after, before, after, before, after, before, after. So this is where we are, and I feel like my exposure is good where it's at. And then here, another problem I see is the color balance is not sitting where I wanted to sit at. I mean, we're really actually getting the look. Like I always say, work on the look while you're still shooting. So it just makes your color grading process a lot easier. If I was actually color grading this, it's only going to take me like 3 minutes to color grade this footage, because I already know the color that I want to get, and I started working on getting that color while I was in set. So here it's going to be our white balance. White balance. So to fix the white balance, usually what I used to do is just play around with like the temperature and the tint until I get to where I want it to be. But I found a much better and a much easier way is to just play around with the offset. So what I do is I just play around with the offset until I get to a point where I think I like it. So I'm just gonna play around with my offset. And I think here is actually a sweet spot. So this is before, the after, before, after, before, after. I think this is actually the look that I wanted to get. So you see, it's pretty easy. I only use 6 nodes right here to do whatever I want to do. But if I want to add some more, I could just say come to my exposure a little bit, and then I just probably just add some contrast a little bit in the shot. So we have before, after, before, after, before, after. And then one thing I could do here is to come to my 4th node and I see the leaves behind here and they seem a little bit too yellow for me. So I could just play around. I mean, you don't have to do this step because I feel like I already got the look that I'm looking to get. Um, Here we could just adjust like the color of this leaves right here. This is just an extra step. You don't have to do this one. And I'm just gonna come to my hue versus hue, and since the leaves right here are sitting somewhere in the yellows, I'm just gonna select my yellows right here, and then I'll just play around with my hue rotate. And there you have it. So this is before, after, before, after, before, after. So you see it's a big difference. And one thing I like to do is I always keep these nodes the last. I don't add any other node after this node, because this node right here affects every other node that comes before it. So if I add another node right here, it's gonna be like I'm trying to correct the LUT instead, because the LUT is right here, and if I adjust anything here, it's gonna adjust the LUT. So I'm not trying to adjust the LUT, rather I'm trying to adjust my clip to fit the LUT, because I want to get a Kodak 2383 look. So I'm trying to adjust my clip to fit the LUT instead, and not to adjust the LUT to fit my clip. So it doesn't work like that. So I'm not gonna have anything after that. So I always keep my LUT right here the last, so nothing comes after it. And one thing you could also do is to I usually like to add some grain, some film grain. So you Control Alt S, and I'll come to my effects and just type film grain, and I just drag and drop, and you can just play around with the settings as much as you want to. And here's the before, after, before, after, before, after. I don't know if you can see that. Before. So that's basically it, guys. So that's how I shoot in SLOG 3, and that is how I basically color grade my SLOG 3 footages. I actually shot this during sunset, so it makes my skin tone looks a lot better. Most of my shoots that I do, I prefer to do it during sunrise or during sunset, and it just gives it makes my skin looks a lot better. So I prefer shooting during sunset. That's just a little tip you can put into consideration. So there you have it, guys. That's how I shoot my SLOG 3 footages, and that's how I color grade my SLOG 3 footages. So if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Or if you like this video, be sure to subscribe, because I have more content like this coming to the channel. So peace out. See you in the next one.